Okay, so I've got a blank file here, and I just wanted to show you the basic approach to modelling that you've been using already, but maybe in a more practical example, because, well, you probably realised already, but I just want to make it clear that those things you're modelling, the building forms that you've been making, aren't really there as examples of good modelling forms. They're just there to give you a good overview of the main modelling tools. And so here I'm just going to use the same tools and make something that's a bit more like the interiors that you're going to be working on. And so I'm going to start with a box, and that's a very standard approach. If you're not sure how to begin, a box is a good starting point for almost anything. So I've just drawn any sized box, and I'm going to right click to finish that, and you can see now in the Create panel I don't have any properties, but if I go to the Modify tab I can always get to them there. Alright, now just to get a start on the building, so if you're wondering what I'm going to make, it's going to be an interior with a semi-enclosed outdoor area, and that'll fit in with something we did previously. So I'm going to just put in 5,000, so 5 meters in each direction, and then using Zoom Extents All in the bottom right hand corner, I can zoom in all the viewports there, see my box. Okay, so right away I'm going to add in some extra segments. Right, so I want some width segments, so 3 width segments, 2 height segments, and 2 length segments should be enough. I think that's all I want. Yep. Okay, so in the perspective view there, I'm just going to hit F4, and that'll turn on the edges in the viewport, so you can see how that box is divided up. Right, so just orbiting around there, just so you can see all the faces. Now, in the exercise, you've been using Edit Poly to get to the individual polygons. And that's a good method if you want to keep the things in your stack. So if I wanted to keep this box there, so I could get back and type in either the length, width or height, then I could apply Edit Poly to allow me to do that. But you've probably seen already, it gets a bit confusing when you've got all these multiple levels in your stack and you don't know where to go to make your changes. And so quite often you'll find it's simpler just to convert it by right-clicking, and then you've got Convert to Editable Poly. It gives you exactly the same tools, it just looks a bit different in the stack over here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is select the polygon option like you have been, and you'll see now that I can just select one of those polygons, delete it, and I've got a simple opening. Now I'm going to select the top polygon. You've been using the Grow option to expand your selection, so I'll use that as well to select all those faces on the top. Right clicking, I'm going to switch to Move. You can do that on the main toolbar, obviously. And I'm going to then just use the Z-axis there to bring the top down. And so I'll show you some other ways of selecting things in the top viewport. So I'll use the Maximize Viewport toggle there to bring that back. In the top viewport, I'm going to make a window, clicking and dragging over the right-hand side. Now notice how it's only selected the faces on that side. It hasn't selected the faces on the top or the bottom. And that's because I've got this option here, Window Crossing. So it's set to Window. Now, have you been doing that in AutoCAD? If you go a certain way, you can get a window, another way you get a crossing. Have you done that? Left to right versus right to left? You have done that in AutoCAD? Okay, so it's something to just watch out for. You wouldn't have seen it, but this happens every single time you click in AutoCAD. When you click to make a window and you go left to right, you would have seen it's green. When you go right to left, it makes a blue window. That's a crossing, blue one's a window. In 3ds Max, you get the same options up here by toggling between a window and a crossing. So now with a window, I can select, as I just showed you, top viewport and just get the right-hand side. So we're going to stretch that down. And so that's extended my room. On the other side, I'll stretch that out a little bit as well, and that will give me the basis for my space. Now I want to make the opening a bit bigger as well, so I'm going to use edge selection instead now. So you can see over here, new polygon, you've got edge, it's the second one there. I'm going to make a window around those edges alongside one side of the opening, and I can again use the x-axis there to move that out. The same on the right hand side. So I've got a decent opening there. I can maybe make this room just a bit longer. Okay, so I've got a fairly plain room, but that will give me the basis for the view to the outside that I want. Now, I'm going to make a camera view now so I can start to see inside that space. So back on the Create tab, you've got the camera panel, and then target cameras are there. So I'm just going to click target, and then clicking and dragging inside the top viewport, going down to the right there. I'll set the camera. I'm going to right click in the perspective view and then type C on the keyboard to set that camera view into that viewport. Right, so now I'm simply going to truck. So again, bottom right corner, I've got the truck option. Clicking and dragging there, I can bring this down. And well, that was clever. I'm looking at the wrong side of the room. So I want to see my opening. I'm actually looking at the side that doesn't have the opening, so I'll just show you in a shaded view there. I'm looking at this side. I want it to be looking at that side. Not a problem. I'll right click in my camera view and then using the look, so under orbit there, you've got the look or pan tool. So I can click and drag there in the camera view, and you can see that's rotating my camera, so it looks to the left. And you can see in the top viewport what that's doing. Now I can again use truck and then pan that camera across so that I'm looking at the opening. Now you can see there's the opening. In the top viewport there, you can see why it's difficult for me to see all of that opening. So instead of adjusting in the camera view, I'm going to go and move the camera, just using the regular move tool, and that's a really good thing, or an important thing for you to be comfortable with. Notice I can select the target and move it as well, and you can see now that's giving me a much better view of my opening. I'll truck that camera view a bit more, so I can just bring the camera down that way. And now finally, just to give me a better camera view, I'm going to select the camera. And then on the Modify tab, go to 24mm. And so now I can see pretty clearly in that interior. If I go to render though, I'm not going to get anything. And that's because I'm looking at the inside normals. And this is similar to what you would have had with the mullions. And so there, we need to put a normal modifier on. So, not normal, sorry, normal would work, but so I wanted to show you a different one. So shell, because that's the one you've used. And, sorry, I just can't see it in the list there. I can't see shell. Oh, well, I'll just do normal then. It's because of the kind of mesh. I'll just do normal modifier. And you'll see then if I render again, well, we still get nothing because there's no light, so I'll just put a light inside. And, oh, that was clever of me. I'll put a normal modifier onto the camera, so that's also a problem. Select the box first before you put your normal modifier on. And that was obviously why I couldn't see the shell modifier either. So I'll show you both. Okay, so normal will help. And there we are. So you can see now, when I render, I can see the interior of that box. So it's just a simple thing that can catch you out when you're looking at the inside of geometry like this. It sometimes won't render if the faces are facing away from you. And they're called normals. So a normal modifier is a quick way of avoiding problems like that or fixing problems like that. The shell modifier, though, will do a better job because it'll allow you to put a thickness in. And so I'm going to make the thickness simply my wall thickness, say 200 mil. And so you'll see now, if I go and render again, that the wall's got a thickness there. So you can do it either way. And so then the other thing I wanted to show you was the enclosure, or basically it's just going to be like a greenhouse outside the room. So using, again, just a box to start with. So I can just do a simple shell like this, bring it up, and I might isolate that by right-clicking, isolate selection. Okay, so there's my new box, and so this one I want to look like framing for my greenhouse. So I'm going to go to wireframe by F3, and so you can see there I already have some divisions, but I want some more. I'm going to increase the length and the width segments so that I've got a reasonable number of divisions. I end up with basically a square pattern for my cells. I'll just turn the grid off there so you can see it's almost square, but you can see that's still more like a rectangle, so I'll just add in some height segments, and that should be about right. So I've got there fairly square looking divisions. And so now again using I'll use an edit poly modifier this time, I won't convert it. So using edit poly, now I can go down to polygon and delete all the faces on the right hand side. Now I know it might look like everything's disappeared, but it's actually just the views. So I've just panned in those other viewports so that you can see the box. So I'm just going to make a window on the right hand side there to select all the faces on that side and delete them. And I know again it looks like it's all gone, but it's okay. Sometimes you just get these graphical glitches. And so then just the same way as you did the the mullions for your building, you can select all of these faces. So I'll just make a window to select all of them, or Control A would work as well. And then using Inset. Now with a modifier like this, or sorry, with an editing tool like this, you'll see you've got the settings button next to the tool. And definitely when you're learning them, it really helps if you can see the settings. Even if you know the tool pretty well, it's often a good idea still to bring the settings up. So just remember that next to Inset there, you can see that little box with the line above it is your settings button. Okay, so here it's really important that it's on by polygon. And then the amount, you can just do it by eye to begin with, so just clicking and dragging on the arrows will give you a bit of an idea what it looks like. So you can see there 42, that's maybe a bit too much, so I'll go down to about half that, so about 25. And then tick to finish, and it will apply that. The cross will then close it, and well, it didn't apply it, so I'll just bring that up again. It'll keep the settings, so I can just try clicking the tick now. There we go. That's how it should work. So that's left me with these inside polygons selected, and you can see the frame there is set out around them. So I'm just going to do the same as the in the tutorial. Delete. And again, it looks strange. It looks like I'm deleting the whole thing, but it's just because of the graphics glitch. But you can see it is all still there. So that's giving me a simple frame. I'm going to go out of the edit poly modifier. And so this is something, when you're working in the stack, that applies to everything. You can see when you're at sub-object mode, in the panel down here, because that polygon button is turned on, but up the top it's probably clearer, and you can see down below Edit Poly, we have the hierarchy with polygon, and that's probably the best way of telling when you're in sub-object mode, because it's highlighted there below the top. So to get out of the stack, I just need to go up to the top to Edit Poly, and that will be the same as turning off the polygon option there. So back up to the top, and then I can put the shell modifier on. And it's really important that you do it in that order. So you have to be at the top of the stack before you put the next thing onto the stack. So here, the frame amount, I'll just make that say 50. Okay, so it's far from being a perfect frame, but for your purposes, it's easily good enough. So to give a good conceptual idea of framing, I think it's going to work really well. And you would very rarely need to show more detail than that. And so then again, just building on the things you've been doing already, I can still deform that. So you might think, well, it's pretty boring, just a box. But it's no problem putting a freeform deformation on that, and I'll do that now with the modifier list. So FFD, I'll just do the 3x3x3. So again, it has a stack. When I click on the plus, that goes into the stack to the sub-object level for that modifier. Control points there is probably the main one that you'd be using. And so now I can start just selecting individual points rather than doing them in groups. It's good to just try modifying them individually, and you can see now I'm deforming my frame. Okay, and this is often the way that people come up with those sort of deconstructed forms. It's all about deforming established idioms and forms. Okay, so here the one in the middle would be nice if that can come up a bit, and then this one maybe the other way. Yeah. So already it's starting to look interesting from the inside, and you know, just want to be thoughtful about the way you do things like this, because it can get out of control really quickly. But you know, you can do some really interesting things just by deforming sort of standard geometry. At the end of the day, if you're not starting from a rational point, it's very difficult to get anything done, or to begin anything. So there we are. That's probably getting towards the sort of thing I want. And so I'm just going to get out of sub-object mode, exit isolation, and you can see now that I've got the greenhouse the long way around there, so I better rotate that so that the opening's on the right side. I think I've done that back to front. Yeah, I have. Okay, so that's alright. I can just flip that. In the top viewport there, I've just got rotate now, and using angle snap, I'm just going to turn that on. It should be fine with any value. Clicking and dragging on the grey circle there, you can see that's going to let me flip exactly 180. And if you're wondering where I'm looking for the values, it's right down the bottom. You'll see there's a Z value there. That is, you can see 180. Okay, so already that's looking okay. So I've got my opening there, and you can see I've got a pretty good view there into that enclosure. I might do another one though, just to show you a little bit more with cameras. So I'm going to make another camera view. Again, just using a target camera, clicking and dragging in the top viewport in the opposite corner to the other camera. So again, going up and to the right. And again, I'm going to set it by first right-clicking, this time in the bottom left viewport. C sets the camera, F3 turns on shading, and then I'm going to use truck to essentially pan and bring the camera view, or lift the camera up off the ground. Okay, so now you can see, again, I've got a different view looking at that enclosure. That's okay, but I really want to be looking at that more than my interior, my space. So I want to walk the camera forward. Right, so just using the in the bottom right corner, you can see the truck tool, truck camera. Under that, you have the footsteps, the little walkthrough tool. With that, you can click in a viewport and then use the arrow keys to walk. So you can walk forwards that way, and you can see it's moving the camera forward so that I can view more closely what I want. Okay, so again, I'll do the same in this viewport. I'm just going to right click there, click on the little feet, and then click and drag to get the angle and use the arrows to walk forward. Okay, now I've left the frame on the bottom. I should have taken that off as well. So I'll just finish that off. With the frame selected, I can just go back to the stack, find the original Edit Poly modifier, go to Polygon, and then I can, in this orthographic viewport, I'm going to switch it to front just by right-clicking where it says orthographic, and then choose front, zoom out a bit, and then I'll use F3 to go to wireframe, so I can just make a window there over the base of that box, which will select only the faces or the polygons on the underside. I'll orbit so you can see that. It's maybe a bit hard to see in this mode, but I have selected the polygons you can see over here, so I'm going to just try deleting those. Okay, so that's worked, and I'll just try and get the view to look a bit better, but you can see now I've just got the frame finishing at the floor, and it would be good to have a slab. So again, when you start doing this in your CAD programs, you can be as precise as you want to be, but for something like this, a box sitting under that frame, or sitting under that enclosure, is easily going to do the job. So that looks just like a concrete slab. And so there, I can just bring it down instead of going up. You can see I've just moved the cursor so it goes below the surface I've just made. I'm going to set all my segments there to 1, so I don't have any unnecessary detail in that new box. I've just turned on shading in the orthographic view so you can see clearly what's happening there. And just to finish off the greenhouse now, I'll select it and then do the same thing you've been doing. I'm going to duplicate it. So I'm going to right click and clone, and I'm going to set it to copy. And so you'll see now the beauty of non-destructive editing. I can go back to the original objects that I want. So I want to keep the freeform deformation the same, but I don't want the shell modifier anymore, and I don't want edit poly either. Okay, so that's left me with just the box deformed in the same way with that freeform deformation modifier. I'm going to use shell and here, sorry, I just want to make this, it's a bit of a trick, minus 20, I think, and then this one, oh sorry, that won't let me do minus, but this one, sorry, should be 20, that should work. Yeah, okay, so I'll just have to do a quick scale on that as well. So let's say 101. Not too much. So let's just try 100.5. Still a bit too much. Okay, so 100.25. Yep, there we go. All right, so in the material editor, I'm just going to put a quick glass material onto that now so you can see the frame again. All right, so here you'll see if you've got an Icon Design material, you can just choose, say, glass thin geometry. It gives you a really good glass as a starting point, and there we are. You can see now my frame, and oh, actually, I'm just going to take out the sides that I don't want. So I'll put a edit poly modifier into the stack there. So notice I put it in under the FFD just to make it easier. So then I can here go down to polygon, or clicking on the polygon there would be the same, and it's really just the side on the bottom, which I'll select again with a window. So this side here I'll delete, and then we can't really see the bottom, but I'll delete it anyway. So again here it's easier if I switch to a front view. I'll zoom out, go to wireframe with F3, and then again just make a window over the bottom of the box to delete any faces sitting there. And there we go. So now I have, with any luck, a pretty reasonable view of the inside of that enclosure. And I'll just show you again from the outside how that looks now. So you can see that I've got my glass sitting inside that frame. Right, so hopefully you can see from that, for the sorts of spaces you'll need to do for your objects, it might be an idea to have glazed areas, and it could be a really effective thing if you can do a sculptural kind of form. Now you don't need to detail in all of the complex glazing systems that you might have, or something like that. If you have a look at around the high-tech British architecture especially, but just high-tech architecture generally, they do some amazing glazing systems. It just looks incredible. But you can get a pretty similar effect just by doing something like this and showing simplified framing like that, as long as you've got a good idea how to make the basic geometry. And then the modifiers will give you some really good shortcuts for doing all those things. Right, so later on I'll get that little exterior we did before, which has just some geometry in there that'll make the outdoor environment give some more interesting lighting for the interior. And so that's why I got you to do that before. And we'll get some, hopefully, presentable renders coming together from this. And then over the next week or so, we can start. I'll start giving you examples that are more like the exhibition space you're going to be making. And actually, what's she called it? Has she given you a name for that project? You haven't got one yet? No. Oh, I thought you had the brief. Oh, okay, you're getting it today, are you? You do have the brief? Earth, water, sky. Okay, great. Okay, so very basic render there, but we'll develop that a lot further. So I might just finish that recording so you get it today.